It's playoff time. Week 15, every running back is ranked and tiered. So before Sunday, let's break down these updated running back rankings so you're not a first round exit. This is ZNM Fantasy Football presented by ErvinandM.com. Where I combine industry leading data, Vegas sportsbooks, and expert analysis to provide you with optimal weekly rankings for the utmost accuracy when setting your weekly lineups in your fantasy football league. I'm running this on Tuesday night for Wednesday's video. Expect more videos later every week for the other unit groupings like wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end. Click the playlist at the top right so you don't miss out for all the updated rankings. And let me start out. Congratulations, boys and girls. Now listen up. For S tier this week, it's 100 yards or more. There's 7. Saquon Barkley. 119 over under, 145 yards per game. Derrick Henry, 96 over under, 118 yards per game. And he gets the Giants' 29th worst run defense. Jahmyr Gibbs, 90 over under, 102 yards per game in the highest scoring game of the season.
Hallelujah.
Set at 55 against Buffalo's below average run D. Chase Brown, 97 over under, but 123 yards since he took over in his last 5 games. It's the 3rd highest scoring game of the week. Bijan Robinson, 111 over under, 106 yards per game. Joe Mixon, 103 over under, 113 yards per game. It's the 3rd highest scoring game of the week. Matchup's tough against Miami, but rest assured, he's going to be just fine. And Alvin Kamara, 99 over under, 109 yards per game. They're 7-point dogs in this one, but Washington's 27th worst run D is a nice matchup. These are your top 7 running backs for Week 15, Round 1 of the playoffs. They're your best running backs this week. They catch passes. They have good matchups with high implied team scoring totals. They all score a tutty every single game or more, putting them in the best position to maximize your fantasy points and go for about 100 yards. A tier begins with the rest of the elite running backs. Any of these guys can finish top 8. They are projected for about 90 yards this week by major sports books. All these backs have outstanding matchups for the most part. It's Josh Jacobs at 8. 90 over under, 101 yards per game. He's got the highest projection and average of the group. His matchup is excellent against the 21st Seahawks run D. He scores a tutty nearly every game. Lock him in. David Montgomery at 9. 82 over under, 83 yards per game. He gets a bump this week. Not only because of his stellar performance, but once again, this is the highest scoring game of the season.
Hallelujah.
Not the week, the season. Set at 55. He gets the below average Bills run defense this week, and it is a monstrous, ludicrous total. He scores a touchdown every single game. This could be better than the Super Bowl. I'm not even joking. Kyren Williams at 10. 82 over under, but 90 yards per game. This is the 2nd highest scoring game of the week. Corum steals a play here or there, but it makes no difference. Kyren scores a tutty every game. You best believe this is going to be the next best game to watch, and you best believe Williams is going to be leading the charge for the Rams offense. James Conner at 11. 88 over under, 92 yards per game. I mean, the Cardinals are favorites. Vegas thinks they're going to score more than usual against the below average Patriots front 7. He's one of the last bell cows. He only scores a tutty 40% of the time, but don't be scared. He's the foundation of the Cardinals offense. And Chuba Hubbard at 12. 89 over under, 89 yards per game. The number 1 defense couldn't stop Chuba. And this week, Dallas and their 30th worst run D ain't going to stop him either. We disrespected him last week and never again. Brooks is gonzo, lock Hubbard in rest of season. He's underrated. and he scores 60% of the time. Achan at 13, 90 over under, only 83 yards per game. I mean, he scores 80% of the time, but he draws the worst matchup out of the tier, Houston's 10th best run defense. It's tied for the third highest scoring game of the week, with Houston favored at home. But Achan should be fine. His matchup just slides him back just a few this week. And Tony Pollard, 80 over under, but 90 yards per game. I mean, he gets Cincy's non-existent defense this week. And even though they're 5-point dogs in this game, it is tied for the third highest scoring game of the week. Pollard is a foundational player for the Titans and is also underrated. Lock him in this week against the Bengals' below average run D. B tier begins with the rest of the starting running backs. These guys are projected for 70 to 80 yards. It's a bit of a drop, but there's 7 here too. We'll kick it off with ErvinandM.com. ErvinandM.com is my company my best friend and I started in 2020. We literally make everything ourselves by hand. We have earrings, rings, necklaces, bracelets, tie clips, apparel, and more. Over a dozen curated gemstones and 100 handcrafted products. If you need a gift or something special for yourself, use the promo code in the description, find something you love, and buy it today. Now back to the video. Support me, support you. Shop at my store. Buy a hat or a t-shirt or some jewelry. Your little wrists and fingies are naked and ugly. But if you don't like spending money and looking good, then subscribe. It's free. We'll kick it off with Rico Dowdle at 15. 86 over under, 78 yards per game. I mean, listen, he's another severely underrated player. He faces the worst front seven in the NFL, the Carolina Panthers. They've allowed nearly 100% of opposing backs to decimate their defense this season, and Dowdle is above James Cook and JT for total yards this season. Put some respect on his name. Put him in your lineup. This is the best matchup of the week. Aaron Jones at 16, 83 over under, 92 yards per game. He draws the Bears' 26th worst front seven this week. The Vikings are going to eviscerate Chicago as 7-point favorites. He's a no-brainer. Lock him in. This is the last of the great matchups. From here, it's back on the other side of the ball facing tough run defenses. It's James Cook at 17. 70 over under, 77 yards per game. I mean, once again, this is the highest scoring game of the week, but you probably already know Detroit is 5th best against the run. Cook's line hasn't dropped much over average, but 70 yards is the lowest amount in the tier this week. The matchup does make your butthole pucker. Remember the total. You'll be okay. GL. And Zach Charbonnet at 18. 86 over under, 150 yards in his 2 full games. His only 2 full games. I mean, it's not clear who's going to start, but I seriously doubt they ignore Charbonnet any longer. Best case scenario, he's a full send again. The bad news is he gets the 9th best run D this week with the Packers. But I mean, if there's no KW3, I might move him to the top of the tier in spite of the matchup. Jonathan Taylor, 19. 81 over under, 91 yards per game. He's got to run against the 6th best Broncos defense. It's not good. He's only down 10 yards over average this week, but he finds himself at the end of the tier with one of the worst matchups. He has a lower comparative tutty rate in being dogs in a low-scoring game away from home. Not great. Brian Robinson Jr., 71 over under, 74 yards per game. I mean, if he's 100% healthy, his matchup is great, but he finds himself at the end because he probably isn't 100%. And he'll probably split as well or be on a snap count. Vegas has him full sending. Good enough for me and the 20th spot this week, all things considered. Brings us to C tier. This is where uncertainty begins to creep in. These backs are projected for 60 to 70 yards this week. GL, boys and girls. We'll go back-to-back at 21 and 22 with Rashad White and Bucky Ervin. They're both projected about 60 over-under. Bucky's done better by about 10 yards over Rashad at about 70. But we don't really know what the backfield's going to look like this week. They get the league average run defense this week of the Chargers. It'll be the Bucs' path to offensive success, given the Chargers' secondary is tougher. Baker, the touchdown maker, should rely heavily on whoever goes. They are dogs with an okay total. If it's only Rashad White, throw him ahead of James Cook. It's Najee Harris at 23. 62 over-under, 86 yards per game. I mean, he's been very good. But for some reason, Vegas has him more than 20 yards below average this week. And it's because he faces Philly. Their 8th best run D, number 1 overall total defense in the league. Vegas has this game at 24-19 in favor of the Eagles. That's the lowest implied team total of the whole week. Couple that with his under 500 touchdown rate. And this is going to be a tough game for the Steelers and for Najee. Not as tough as the next two. We'll just go back to back with them since they're kind of in the same boat. At 24 and 25, it's DeAndre Swift and Tyron Tracy Jr. 60 over-under for Swift, 67 over-under for Tracy. Swift and Tracy have been great. They both score a tutty 40% of the time. And this week they face the number 1 and number 2 run defenses in the league, Minnesota and Baltimore. Swift is underprojected by 21 yards, and Tracy and the Giants are nearly 15-point dogs against the Ravens. I mean, it is absolutely brutal, absolutely horrendous. Their season performances keep them from D tier, but make no mistake, this is where you want to consider other options. Which brings us to D tier, in 50 to 60 yards, and your last chance for anything viable. It's Isaac Guerendo, or Patrick Taylor, or whoever they end up starting. Look, if it's only one back, you can get more excited. We just don't know yet if Guerendo is going to return or split, and if Taylor is going to get the full load or split. And with no way to be certain, regardless of who it is, it's a big risk to start him. The dream matchup, but don't let that cloud your judgment, even if coach comes out and says who their guy's going to be. And at 27, it's Isaiah Pacheco. 57 over-under, 59 yards per game. I mean, he's been ramping up over the past 2 weeks. The Chargers saw him double his carries, but he only managed 11 more yards compared to his return against the Raiders the previous week, with half as many as attempts. His matchup is decent against the Browns, 22nd run D, but Vegas is weary of Pacheco, and that's enough for me. To me, this indicates that Hunt is here to stay, taking enough of the load off of Pacheco to hold him back. Till we see otherwise, not looking good. Ramondre Stevenson, 28, 52 over-under, 67 yards per game. They're heavy dogs in this one with the Cardinals' league average front seven. The Pats are among the lowest scoring offenses. This is a bad team away from home. Stevenson is under about 15 yards for this one. His receiving might help a tiny bit in full PPR, but the Cardinals only allow 50% of backs to hit their over. Not good. Braylon Allen at 29, 65 over-under, 83 yards per game. The Jags below average, 24th run D looks nice. They allow 70% of backs to get home, but he won't get the backfield to himself. And what's worse, this is the lowest total of the week, set at 40 points. It's gross. And Sincere McCormick at 30, 50 over-under, 77 yards in his 2 full games. I mean, he's done well in those 2 full games. He plays Atlanta this week, whose league average against the run, judging by his over, being about 27 under average. We can assume the other backs will be returning, at least one of them, and unfortunately splitting the backfield with him. If he goes along, he could finish in C tier, but beware in GL. Jaylen Warren at 31, 50 over-under, 52 yards per game. Copy and paste what I said about Harris. The outlook is much bleaker for the handcuff. And once again, the Eagles stop 50% of running backs. Only Chuba Hubbard managed 90 yards against them this season. King Henry with 80, Kyron with 70. Everyone else was held to 40 yards on average. Yikes. Travis Etienne at 32, 45 over-under, 50 yards per game. I mean, he did just enough in the past 2 weeks to climb out of the gutter tier, but make no mistake, this is a bad game and a bad outlook. Jets are league average against the run, but 50% of backs are held to their unders. Couple that with this being the lowest scoring game of the week, and you don't really want to start anyone in either offense, to be frank. From here, though, they're unstartable. It's less than 40 yards. It's RIP. It's the rest. Javonte Williams, Nick Chubb, Tank Bigsby, Gus Edwards, Kareem Hunt, Justice Hill. You know what I'm saying? Go to my store, buy something. You look like shit. Jerome Ford, it doesn't matter. I'll throw your running backs full screen back on screen now. I sincerely hope this helps everyone watching. Good luck in round 1 of the playoffs. Subscribe, turn on post notifications so you can see all the videos each week before submitting your lineups. It's free, so it's a good value. But if you like spending money and looking good, use the promo code, spend it in my store, and watch some more videos.